Right, quick question for you, Mauven. You've got MFA turned on. Text codes, Authenticator app, the lot. You're basically bomb-proof, yeah?
Well, I'd hope so. That's what we tell everyone.
Spot on. Now imagine getting an email from a colleague. Looks completely legitimate. Click the link, sign in with your password, approve the MFA request on your phone like you always do, and boom, you're in.
That's a standard process for me at least once a day.
Except you've just handed an attacker everything they need to waltz into your Microsoft 365 account. Full access. No more MFA prompts needed. They've stolen your session token.
What? Hold on one second. That's not how MFA is supposed to work.
Welcome to what is now called an adversary in the middle attacks, or AITM if you prefer acronyms. It used to be called a man in the middle attack, but you know times are a-changing. And according to Microsoft's latest numbers, these attacks jumped 146% in the past year.
Crikey.
It gets better. Traditional MFA only protects the login itself. Once that session token's nicked, the attacker becomes you.
Right, so we're about to have a very uncomfortable conversation about how the thing we've been telling everyone to use for years isn't quite the silver bullet we thought it was.
Not quite, but there are fixes, proper ones. Just need to understand what we're actually defending against.
Happy New Year, and welcome to the first Small Business Cybersecurity Guy podcast of 2026.
He's the guy with the plan for your online life. Keeps your data safe, cuts through the strife. Small biz owners, yeah, this is your guide. Cyber threats, beware, no place to hide. The Small Business Cybersecurity Guy, guarding your world with a sharp eagle eye. Tips and tricks to keep your systems tight. Stay secure, stay strong in the digital fight.
I'm Mauven McLeod.
And I'm Graham Faulkner. Noel's running late, apparently, and as studio time is expensive, you're stuck with just us for the moment.
Shocking. What's the excuse this time?
No idea. Probably explaining the difference between a firewall and a brick wall to a traffic warden, or stuck in traffic, which is why I get the train.
Yep, and it was his idea to do this in person this time too.
Anyway, today we're talking about something that honestly makes me a bit nervous. We've spent years telling small businesses to turn on MFA, and rightly so. It blocks over 99% of automated account attacks, according to Microsoft's research.
Which is brilliant, no question there.
But attackers aren't stupid. When you lock the front door, they start looking for windows, and they found one. Adversary in the middle attacks bypass MFA by stealing the session token after you've already logged in.
So the lock works perfectly. They just follow you in through the door after you've unlocked it.
Exactly that. And before anyone panics, we're not saying don't use MFA. You absolutely should. But we need to talk about upgrading to phishing-resistant MFA. Passkeys, hardware tokens, Windows Hello for Business. Stuff that can't be stolen even in an AITM attack.
And I'm guessing this isn't the free and easy MFA we've been recommending.
Some of it is, actually. Windows Hello costs nothing if you're already on Windows. But yeah, we need to get technical today. Proper technical.
Oh, it is going to be one of those episodes. Right, let's start with the bad news. How exactly does someone steal a session token?
Alright, imagine you're signing in to Microsoft 365. Normal day. You type your email, password, approve the MFA request on your phone. Standard stuff.
Done this 1,000 times.
Right. Now, behind the scenes, what's happening is Microsoft checks your credentials, sees you've completed MFA, and issues something called a session token. Think of it like a visitor's badge that proves you've already been verified.
So I don't have to keep proving who I am every 5 minutes.
Exactly. That token typically lasts for hours, sometimes days, depending on your settings. And here's the problem. That token is single-factor authentication. It's just one thing. Steal it and you're in.
Wait, so MFA gets me through the door, but then the badge I'm wearing afterwards is just one factor?
Yep, and that's not a vulnerability in MFA itself. It's just how web authentication works. You can't ask people to re-authenticate every single action. They'd go mental.
Fair point. So how do attackers actually steal this token?
They set up a fake login page. Not a clone, mind you. A transparent proxy that sits between you and the real Microsoft login page. When you type your credentials, it passes them through to the real site. When Microsoft asks for MFA, it passes that through too.
So from my perspective, everything looks completely normal.
Completely. You're interacting with the real Microsoft site. The attacker's just sitting in the middle, copying everything. When Microsoft issues your session token, the attacker grabs a copy.
That's properly nasty. And this works even though I've done MFA correctly.
Because you've done MFA correctly. The attacker needed you to complete that authentication to get the token issued. They're not bypassing MFA. They're tricking you into doing it on their behalf.
Brilliant. So the more secure I try to be, the more I help them.
In this specific attack, yeah. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Microsoft 365 login page. Looks perfect, right?
Can't tell the difference.
Of course you can't, because it's not a fake page. It's a proxy showing you the real page. Check the URL though.
That's not Microsoft.com.
Nope. It's something like Microsoft Services Login Verify.com or whatever the attacker registered. But the page content? Real. The MFA prompt? Real. The entire authentication flow? Real.
So the only tell is the URL in the address bar.
Which most people don't check because the page looks perfect. And honestly, even if you do check, some of these URLs are convincing enough that you might miss it. Especially on mobile, where you can barely see the full URL anyway.
Right, and once they've got this token, what happens?
They import it into their browser and become you. No username needed, no password, no MFA prompt. They're already authenticated because they've got your valid session token.
For how long?
Depends on your conditional access policies. By default, Microsoft 365 tokens last 8 hours. Some organisations have them set for 24 hours or longer.
8 hours of unrestricted access to someone's email, SharePoint, everything.
Yep, and in that time, they're doing recon. Reading emails to understand your business. Looking for financial information. Setting up forwarding rules so they continue getting your email even after the token expires. Registering their own MFA method so they can get back in later.
That last one's terrifying. They can add their own MFA device to my account?
If your policies allow it, yeah. Then they've got persistent access. Password reset won't help because they've got their own MFA registered.
How common are these attacks?
Microsoft reported a 146% increase in AITM attacks over the past year. They're detecting around 39,000 incidents daily, and those are just the ones Microsoft catches. Plenty more getting through.
That's not a small problem.
It's not. And it's not just Microsoft. Any service that uses session tokens can be attacked this way. Google, Salesforce, whatever. But Microsoft 365 is the big target because nearly everyone uses it.
Right. So traditional MFA is still blocking 99% of attacks. But this AITM method is part of that remaining 1%.
And that 1% is growing fast because attackers are adapting. As more organisations turn on basic MFA, attackers need more sophisticated methods. This is one of them.
Brilliant. So what's the fix?
You're listening to the Small Business Cybersecurity Guy. Join the team for an all-new episode every Monday on your favorite podcast platform.
Oh, look who's decided to finally join us. Nice of you to show up, Noel.
Yeah. Traffic was mental. And don't get me started about parking. Where did you get to?
We were just about to discuss how to fix the problem.
Right, before we get to solutions, need to understand why text codes and authenticator apps can't stop this.
Doesn't even apologise. Just dive straight in.
Classic, mission focused as always.
You want solutions or you want to critique my timekeeping?
Fair point. Go on then. Ruin my day completely.
SMS codes get intercepted by the proxy and passed straight through. Authenticator app prompts? Same thing. Push notifications? Yep, those two. The attacker's sitting in the middle, so they capture your MFA response and forward it to Microsoft.
It's like someone standing between you and the bouncer at a club. You show your ID to the middle person, they show it to the bouncer, everyone's happy.
Except the middle person's now got a copy of everything. And here's what makes this really dangerous for small businesses. These attacks used to require technical skill. Now there are phishing as a service platforms. Tycoon, Evil Jinx, Rockstar 2FA, point and click interfaces. You don't need to be a hacker, you just need 50 quid and malicious intent.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Cybercrime as a subscription service.
Exactly. And they're remarkably good. Custom branding that pulls your organization's logo from Azure AD, multi-language support, anti-detection features that show fake pages to security scanners. These aren't amateur operations.
How much are we talking for these services?
Anywhere from 50 to 500 quid a month, depending on features. Some offer pay per compromised account models. It's a proper business.
With customer support, I imagine.
Yup, and tutorials. Discord channels for troubleshooting, the works. Some even have money-back guarantees if you don't successfully compromise accounts.
Oh my goodness, the absolute state of things.
Right, so traditional MFA fails against AITM because it's validating that you know something or have something, but it's not validating where you are or what you're connecting to. The authentication happens in isolation from the context.
Which is why phishing-resistant MFA is different.
Exactly. Phishing-resistant methods bind the authentication to specific cryptographic challenges that can only be answered by the legitimate service. An AITM proxy can't intercept and relay that because the cryptography verifies both the user and the destination.
We're about to get properly technical, aren't we?
Just enough. Small businesses don't need to understand the maths. They need to understand what to buy and how to deploy it. There are three main options for phishing-resistant MFA. Windows Hello for Business, hardware security keys, like our favourites Authentication, or the slightly less technically advanced YubiKey, and passkeys stored on your phone.
Let's start with Windows Hello, since you mentioned it's free.
Okay, Windows Hello for Business uses your computer itself as the authentication device. You set up a PIN or biometric login, face recognition, fingerprint, whatever your device supports. That's bound cryptographically to your specific computer. You do need a professional Windows 11 license, i.e. professional, enterprise, or education. Sadly, not Windows Home.
So even if an attacker steals my PIN, they can't use it?
They can't use it without your actual computer. The private key never leaves the device. When you authenticate, Windows creates a cryptographic signature using that key. The signature proves you've got the physical device and you've unlocked it with the PIN or biometric.
And the AITM proxy can't steal that signature?
Can't replay it, more specifically. Each authentication creates a unique signature. Even if they captured it, it's useless for future logins. Plus, the signature verifies the domain you're connecting to. If the attacker's proxy sits at a different domain, the cryptography fails.
That's actually quite clever.
Microsoft's been pushing this hard because it's already built into Windows 11. If your device is at Azure AD joined or hybrid joined, you can enable it through conditional access policies, zero additional cost.
What's the catch?
Deployment complexity. You need to configure Azure AD, set up the right policies, potentially adjust your network to allow device registration. For organizations that haven't done hybrid identity before, there's a learning curve.
So free, but not necessarily easy.
Yes, free but not trivial. I'd say 2 to 4 weeks for a competent IT person to roll out properly in a small business with 20 to 50 users. Longer if you've got legacy systems or complex network setups.
Right, what about hardware security keys?
YubiKeys are the most common, but I know we all like the Authentication keys that they sent over for us to play with last year. Small USB devices, about the size of a memory stick. You register them with your Microsoft account, and when you log in, you insert the key and touch it to authenticate. The AuthentiCation keys even add your fingerprint to the cryptographic soup.
So the user's physical presence is required.
Exactly. The key contains a private certificate that never leaves the device. When you touch it, it signs a challenge from the server using that certificate. Same principle as Windows Hello, but the key's portable, so you can use it on any computer.
And the bottom line, what's the cost?
Well, it's about £45 to £70 per key, depending on which model. Both vendors support both USB-A and USB-C, and even NFC, and work with Microsoft, Google, basically everything. It is recommended buying 2 per user, one for daily use, one as backup in case the first gets lost.
So £90 to £140 per user for hardware keys.
Thereabouts. But they last years, no battery to fail. I've got keys that are 5 years old, still working perfectly.
And deployment?
Much simpler than Windows Hello. You just register the keys through Azure AD, create conditional access policies requiring phishing-resistant MFA for specific users or roles. Users plug in key, touch the button, done.
What about mobile devices?
That's where passkeys come in. The modern option that Apple, Google, and Microsoft are all supporting, actually pushing hard in many ways. You register your phone as a passkey device. When you need to authenticate, you scan a QR code on your computer with your phone's camera.
Like scanning a barcode at the supermarket.
Pretty much. Your phone then verifies it's you using Face ID or fingerprint, creates a cryptographic signature, and sends it back. Same security properties as Windows Hello or hardware keys, but using the device you've already got.
So no additional hardware cost.
Nope. Though the user experience is a bit clunkier. Scan code, unlock phone, approve prompt. Takes maybe 15 seconds versus 2 seconds to touch a hardware key.
Still better than getting your account compromised.
Dramatically better. And here's the key point. All 3 of these methods stop AITM attacks cold. The attacker's proxy can't steal the cryptographic signature, can't replay it, can't impersonate you.
Even though they're sitting in the middle?
The cryptography verifies the destination domain. If the user's connecting to evilmicrosoftproxy.com instead of login.microsoftonline.com, the signature won't validate. So the attack fails before they even see your credentials.
Right, so the question becomes, which one should a small business actually deploy?
I always recommend a tiered risk-based approach. Don't try to roll out phishing-resistant MFA to everyone at once. You'll create chaos.
Start with highest risk users.
Start with admins. Anyone with privileged access to systems. They're the prime targets and the biggest risk if compromised. Global administrators, exchange administrators, anyone who can make changes to security settings.
How many users are we talking typically?
Small business with 30 employees? Probably 3 to 5 admin accounts. Maybe 10 if you've got a larger IT team. Those are your first deployments.
Hardware keys for them?
Yes, or Windows Hello, depending on new infrastructure. If your devices are already Azure AD joined, Windows Hello makes sense. If you've got a mix of personal devices, contractors, people working on multiple computers, hardware keys give you more flexibility. Either way, get those admin accounts protected first. Then move to Tier 2. Finance staff, HR, anyone with access to sensitive data or payment systems. Someone who can authorize wire transfers is a massive target.
Because once an attack is in a finance person's email, they're setting up business email compromise attacks.
Exactly. Reading email chains about payments, understanding your processes, then sending convincing fake invoices or payment requests. We see this constantly. AITM attack gets initial access, BEC attack extracts the money.
So finance and HR are Tier 2.
Finance, HR, and executives. Your CEO, managing director, anyone whose email compromise would be catastrophic. That's maybe another 10 to 15 users in a small business.
We're at 25 users now with special MFA requirements.
Which is manageable. Here's the thing. You don't need to protect everyone with phishing-resistant MFA immediately. Standard MFA still blocks 99% of attacks. But the high-value targets need the extra protection because they're where attackers focus.
What's Tier 3?
Everyone else, deployed over 3 to 6 months. Start with departments, roll out gradually, provide training, deal with support questions. Don't rush it.
And what does this actually cost for a 30-person business?
Windows Hello route. 0 additional licensing if you're already on Microsoft 365. Maybe 1 week of IT time for someone to configure policies and test. Call it £1,500 in labour if you're paying someone.
Hardware key route?
£140 per user for 2 keys. 30 users is £4,200. Add the IT time for deployment and training, you're looking at £5,500 to £6,000 total.
That's not cheap for a small business.
It's not. But consider the cost of a successful attack. Average data breach costs UK businesses £3.58 million, according to IBM's 2024 numbers. Even a small-scale BEC attack could steal £50,000 to £100,000.
So the ROI calculation is spending £6,000 to prevent potential £50,000 losses.
At minimum. Plus reputation damage, regulatory fines if personal data is compromised, customer trust issues. The math makes sense if you're a target.
Who's actually a target, though? Small businesses tend to think they're too small to matter.
As you well know, that is a complete myth.
Because the attack's automated. Fire and forget.
Exactly. Cost the attacker basically nothing to include your business in a campaign. And small businesses often have weaker security, so the success rate's higher.
Right, let's talk about what actually goes wrong when you try to deploy this stuff.
User resistance is the big one. People hate change, especially when it makes their login slower or more complicated.
Even if it's protecting their job from getting compromised.
Even then, you'll get complaints. This is annoying. I forgot my YubiKey at home. The QR code won't scan on my phone. All legitimate frustrations.
How do you handle that?
Communication and training. Explain why it matters. Show them real examples of AITM attacks. Help them understand the threat's real and the inconvenience is worth it. And provide good support during rollout.
What about the technical gotchas?
Legacy applications that don't support modern authentication. You've got some old business software that only works with username and password. It won't work with phishing-resistant MFA.
So you're stuck with insecure authentication for those apps?
You're stuck creating exceptions in your policies, yeah. Or you migrate off that software, which might be expensive, but might be necessary if it's creating security holes.
Any other gotchas?
Mobile access can be tricky. If people primarily work on phones or tablets, Windows Hello doesn't help. Hardware keys may need special adapters for phones. Passkeys work, but the user experience isn't as smooth.
What about bring your own device environments?
Those are always complicated. You can't enforce Windows Hello on personal devices. Hardware keys work, but you're asking employees to carry additional hardware for their personal devices. You might need to provide company phones or hardware keys if BYOD security is a priority.
And conditional access policies need to be configured correctly or you lock people out.
Oh, that's critical. You need a break glass account, an emergency admin account that's excluded from the phishing-resistant MFA requirement. Otherwise, one misconfiguration and you've locked yourself out of your own tenant.
How do you secure the break glass account if it doesn't have strong MFA?
Strong password, stored in a physical safe, monitored with alerts if anyone uses it. It's the fire extinguisher behind glass. You don't use it except in emergencies, but you need it to exist.
What about costs beyond the hardware?
Training time, support time for the first month when people are moaning about it as they get used to it. Potential productivity loss during transition. Budget at least 30 minutes per user for initial setup and training.
30 users is 15 hours of time.
And if you have more than just a handful of users, spread it over a month or two. Don't try to do it in 1 week. Gradual rollout reduces pain.
All right, beyond the phishing-resistant MFA itself, what else should businesses be doing?
Conditional access policies. Microsoft gives you tools to require MFA based on context. Sign in from a new location? Require MFA. Accessing from an unknown device? Require MFA.
Even with phishing-resistant MFA?
Especially with it. Layer your defenses. Phishing-resistant MFA stops token theft. Conditional access stops suspicious activity even if someone's got valid credentials.
Give us practical examples.
To start with, block sign-ins from countries where you don't do business. If you're a UK company with no operations in Russia or China, block those countries entirely. If an attacker steals credentials, tries to sign in from Moscow, it is blocked at the policy level.
What if someone's on holiday in a blocked country?
That's where you balance security and usability. Either create exceptions for specific users when they travel, or use risk-based policies that require additional verification rather than blocking outright.
This often happens when a user has work email on their personal devices, phone, tablet, etc., which is a whole other conversation that we will talk about other governance issues in a few weeks.
Another policy. Require MFA for any administrative action. Someone wants to change security settings? MFA required, even if they're already logged in. Makes it much harder for attackers to escalate privileges.
What about continuous access evaluation?
CAE is brilliant. Traditional tokens last for hours. CAE checks the token status in near real time.
So even if an attacker steals a token, it doesn't last 8 hours anymore.
Exactly. CAE reduces that window to minutes. It's supported in Exchange Online, SharePoint, Teams. Turn it on through conditional access policies.
Does it require additional licensing?
Nope, it's built into Microsoft 365. Just needs configuring. Though it only works with applications that support it, so you might have gaps with third-party apps.
What else?
Disable legacy authentication protocols. SMTP, IMAP, POP. These old email protocols can't support modern MFA. Attackers love them because if you've enabled SMTP for someone, that's a backdoor that bypasses all your fancy authentication.
What if someone needs SMTP for a business application?
To be blunt, find a different solution. Most, if not all, modern off-the-shelf applications support OAuth or app passwords. If your application vendor can't support modern authentication in 2026, you need a better vendor.
That's fairly brutal.
Security sometimes is, and the statistics back it up. Microsoft found that accounts with SMTP enabled had a 7.2% compromise rate versus 0.5% average. That's 14 times higher risk.
Good grief.
One more thing. Monitor for impossible travel. If someone logs in from London at 2 p.m. and then from New York at 2:30 p.m, that's physically impossible. Flag it, investigate it, potentially block it automatically.
I thought Microsoft Entra ID does this automatically.
Well, it has built-in risk detection, yeah, but you need to configure policies to actually act on those risks. Detection without action doesn't help anyone.
Small medium business exposed. Hit subscribe and like the show. Stay informed and protected. Small business cybersecurity guide. Security tips you can trust. Subscribe now. Stay secure.
Right, let's say an AITM attack succeeds despite all these protections. What's the response?
First thing, revoke all active sessions for the compromised user. Not just reset the password, revoke sessions. Because the attacker's got a valid token, password reset doesn't kick them out.
How do you revoke sessions?
From the Microsoft Entra ID Admin Center. Find the user, revoke all sessions. Takes about 5 minutes and immediately invalidates every token that user has. They'll need to re-authenticate everywhere.
What if the attacker registered their own MFA method?
Remove it immediately. Check the user's authentication methods. Delete anything they don't recognize. Then enforce a password reset with the user watching or doing it themselves.
What else are attackers doing during their access window?
Setting up mail forwarding rules to copy all future emails to an external address. Creating inbox rules to hide their sent messages. Downloading emails or documents. Looking for financial information or credentials for other systems.
So you need to check for all of that.
Always check forwarding rules, inbox rules, mailbox delegates, application permissions. Attackers often authorize OAuth apps that give them continued access even after you've revoked sessions.
How long does proper incident response take?
For one user, 2 to 4 hours to properly clean up, check for persistence mechanisms, review what data was accessed. If you've got to check multiple users, or if they've moved laterally to other accounts, could be days.
And then you've got to figure out what they actually accessed.
That's the hard part. Azure AD logs show authentication events. Exchange logs show mailbox access. But correlating all that to understand what specific emails they read or documents they downloaded, time-consuming forensics work.
Which is why prevention's cheaper than response.
Always is. Spending £6,000 on hardware keys beats spending £20,000 on incident response, £50,000 on stolen funds, and immeasurable cost on reputation damage.
Right, let's wrap this up with what small businesses should actually do this week.
First, verify MFA is actually turned on for everyone. Genuinely. Check your Microsoft 365 Admin Center and confirm there are no users without MFA protection.
Because a shocking number of businesses think they've turned on MFA but haven't configured it properly.
Yep. Then disable SMS and email as MFA methods. Authenticator apps only as minimum. That immediately raises your security level and reduces your attack surface.
Then plan your phishing-resistant rollout.
Identify your Tier 1 users. Admins, finance, executives. Get them protected within the next month. Budget time and resources properly. Don't rush it, but don't delay unnecessarily either.
And configure conditional access policies.
At minimum. Require MFA for all users. Require MFA for administrative actions. Block legacy authentication. Enable continuous access evaluation. These are free features. Use them.
What's the timeline for full deployment?
Tier 1 in month 1. Tier 2 in months 2 to 3. Everyone else by month 6. That's aggressive, but doable if you've got dedicated IT time.
And if you don't have IT time,
hire help. This isn't optional anymore. AITM attacks are growing 146% year over year. Traditional MFA won't stop them. Either protect yourself properly or accept the risk of a 6-figure breach.
Not much middle ground there.
There isn't. Security is about making yourself a harder target than the business next door. If they've got phishing-resistant MFA and you don't, guess who's getting attacked?
Right. That's probably the most technical episode we've done. If your head's spinning, the key takeaway is this. Traditional MFA is brilliant for stopping 99% of attacks. But that last 1% is getting more sophisticated.
phishing-resistant MFA is the answer. Windows Hello, hardware keys, or passkeys. Pick one, deploy it properly, and you've closed the door on AITM attacks.
And don't panic about the cost or complexity. Start small, protect your highest risk users first, expand gradually. This is achievable for businesses of any size.
Show notes for this episode are at thesmallbusinesscybersecurityguy.co.uk with links to Microsoft's deployment guides and our recommended hardware.
Next week, something we have been working on for months is happening, right?
Indeed, we are launching something massive that builds on our episode about risk registers from a few weeks ago, which, my dear listener, if you haven't heard, then go check out Season 1, Episode 31, as this is one of the highest rated episodes today based on the feedback I have seen. And I wasn't even involved.
That's right, we had loads of really positive feedback from small business owners across the globe who needed the same kick up the backside I gave Graham.
That was genuinely eye-opening. I know we trailed it last week, so next week is episode 1 of a series that will help small businesses everywhere build an incident response plan that will help minimise the impact of when the bad guys come to play.
Each of the 45-minute episodes will give you a breakdown of what you need to do and why you need to do it in a logical and structured manner. We are spreading this out with a new episode every other week, interspersed with our regular format episodes all the way into the end of March.
We have fully tested this approach, which, in line with the recommendations of the NCSC Best Practice for Small Business, and will provide a whole step-by-step guide that can be actioned by any business owner, even those without their own day from IT.
So welcome to 2026, the year you get your cybersecurity straight.
This is critical for business continuity. See you next week.
Stay secure out there.
Right, before we let you go completely, let's have the quick chat about the boring but necessary legal bits. Don't worry, I'll make this as painless as possible. First up, and this is important, everything we've said today represents our own personal opinions and experiences. These views are ours alone and don't represent any organisation we worked for, any employers, advertisers, sponsors, or anyone else who might be connected to the show. When we're giving you advice or sharing our thoughts, that's coming from us as individuals, not speaking on behalf of anyone else. Everything we've talked about today is for general guidance. It's meant to point you in the right direction, but it absolutely shouldn't be treated as professional advice tailored specifically to your business. Your situation is unique. What works brilliantly for a Birmingham bakery might be completely useless for a Manchester marketing agency.
So you can sleep well at night, knowing that you have done everything you can do, to the point that if something goes wrong, you know what to do, as panic is not a plan.
We do our very best to keep everything accurate and current, but let's be honest here. The cybersecurity world moves faster than a caffeinated squirrel being chased up a tree by Mauven's Jack Russell Fido. Things can change between when we record and when you're listening, so always double check critical technical details with qualified professionals before you go making major changes to your systems. If we've mentioned any websites, products or services, we're giving you information, not necessarily giving them our seal of approval. We can't be responsible for what happens on their end, or if things go sideways when you use them. Some things we recommend might involve affiliate partnerships. We'll always flag those when they come up because transparency matters. Now, if you're dealing with serious cybersecurity incidents, actual data breaches, or gnarly legal compliance issues, please talk to proper professionals rather than just relying on podcast advice. We're here to educate and help you understand the landscape, not to replace your security consultant, solicitor, or IT team. Finally, and this is important, whilst we genuinely want to help you improve your security, we can't accept liability for any losses or problems that might happen from following our suggestions. Think of us as your knowledgeable mates down the pub who work in cybersecurity, not your official contracted consultants. We care about your business, but we're not your insurance policy. Stay safe out there, keep learning, and remember, when in doubt, get a second opinion from someone who can see your specific situation. Cheers! This has been a Small Business Cybersecurity Guy production. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved.
Click subscribe and join the ride. Together we'll shield the digital tide. Your business is strong when your data's secure. The Small Biz Cyber Guy, here to ensure. We're signing off. Stay cyber safe no matter the cost. The Small Biz